How's it going? I am Benny Smiles. I'm back for the fourth part in my series deconstructing Hotline Miami Theme, which I made for the Hotline Miami 2 video game soundtrack. This week I didn't have time really to cover everything that I wanted to in the previous video about music theory, so this week covers structure and arrangement. So I hope that that's useful to you. If it is, let me know. Please like the video. Comments are really helpful. Any kind of suggestions and questions are great. You can support me on the Patreon or by buying my records on Bandcamp. Yeah man, I hope this is good. The first question I want to do comes from Hamburgaga on YouTube. It's not really a question. He or she just says, "Awesome, time to get some new VSTs." My answer initially was, "Nah, plugins aren't the answer. What have you got already?" And to unpack that a little bit, I think what is important is having instruments that sound good, and they can absolutely be plugins. They can be the stock instruments that come with Ableton or Logic or anything like that, or you can use hardware synths, or whatever way works for you is good. What I find most important is that stuff sounds good straight off the bat. So that can either mean really good presets on a synth, or just like just a construction that makes things sound good, like the oscillators sound nice and the filters sound nice and everything else. There's a couple of synths, plug-in synths that are great for this. Diva is fantastic. The presets are great, and then you can build on it from there. And Serum tends to sound really good straight off the bat. And there's a ton of, so you can be on Splice and just search for presets that way, and then something will catch your ear and you download that preset and then you can tweak it from there. But the important thing is just that it sounds good immediately, so that when you just start, well, in my case, I'm just like keyboard cat. I just start mashing the keyboard and hoping something decent comes out, that the sound at least is already taken care of, or it's somewhere in the ballpark of where it wants to be. And if you start with good ingredients like that, it just makes it so much easier to cook a nice meal, to use a metaphor. But yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not that important to have a ton of VSTs or plugins, but just a couple that work really well and that you can rely on and that you know inside out, so that you can tease what you want from them, their idiosyncrasies and where all the controls that you're going to need, where they live, and how you can make that happen quickly so that you don't lose your inspiration as you're working on it. DJ Juris Doctor in Reddit Synthwave Producers says, "I'd be interested to see a workflow type video where you create a track or a beat from start to end. I tried to do this a couple of times, but it felt fucking weird and labored to knowing that the camera was watching, and the screen capture thing was fucking with my vibe and creating latency as well. I will try and figure out how to do that. I'm not sure what the best approach is yet, but that would be something cool, because I guess, yeah, that's it. It's always interesting to see how different people work, and you always learn something from watching how someone else works, so that would definitely be something that I'd like to do. Please do keep your questions coming in. There's been so many great ones in from Reddit and Facebook. My Instagram is Benny Smiles Music. And yeah, you can get in touch. I really like it. I mean, I'm having a great time making all these videos, so I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get more questions, and it just gives me more stuff to cover. So please do say hello. So the structure is really simple. It's just two alternating sections, essentially. There's an A section. I'm going to call it the vamp. It's just a repeating A major chord, essentially. Just lets you know you're in the key of A, but I guess it then builds tension because there's no movement in it for this whole section, so when chords finally do arrive, I guess that kind of feels like relief or contrast. Contrast, really important in music. And then the what I'm calling the chorus, or like this is the B section. The chorus is just a sequence of chords, as opposed to no sequence of chords in the previous section. And then at the end, it's a third progression. It's like an altered version of one of the other two, where the bass isn't playing the root note necessarily, and it just leaves a bit of a question mark on the track, which I quite like that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's nice to not completely resolve, where you wind up on the final chord of a sequence rather than returning to the first chord that kind of makes the sequence feel complete. It's to get you back to this, putting on that track again. That wasn't my intention here. I just thought it was cool to leave a kind of question mark. Or there's no real conscious decision making going on here. It's nice to have contrast between those various sections, and the arrangements provide some of that. But yeah, I think fundamentally what you do harmonically is always going to have more impact than any amount of production or arrangement stuff. Like, if something isn't working musically, production isn't going to help it. That doesn't apply to every genre. Some music is less dependent on traditional harmony, but this particular piece of music, I think it's based around just very simple work with chords and harmony. There's no real melody, and not too much really changes. So I guess what's important is just the material that's contained in the chords. So the last thing we want to look at is arrangement. And I think of arrangement, I call structure like the movement from one section to another. And I think of arrangement as being what elements are playing at any given time. And that will usually change most significantly between like a verse and a chorus in a pop song or something. You just get more instruments playing in a chorus, or sometimes way less. You got these kind of like drop chorus type vibe, which I also like. But in this instance, for the vamp part, it tends to be quite sparse. And then for the chorus, a whole bunch of other stuff comes in. And I've tried to make it visually really obvious what's going on. So the drums are all blue, the low bass is brown. This thing is a tasteful salmon. Then you've got all of the synths are in purple and the strings are in orange. So you can sort of see just like quite clearly how things drop out from section to section, and then like it's really basic stuff. In the first vamp, the bass drops out for the third repetition of it to build some tension, and then there's more of a contrast when the chords come back in for that chorus thing. So everything kind of just drops at the same time, and the low end is suddenly filled in again after it having dropped out. I guess that's kind of an effective way to create a little bit of a tension and release. And then there's strings in each chorus, with the exception of the first one. So the strings arrive in the second chorus, and then they come back again for the third chorus in the outro. They initially are all just the sustained articulations. And then the tremolando articulation joins for the second half of each chorus. Yeah, it's just a slight difference in texture that brings the intensity up another level, I think. And the panning position, mix-wise, the sustained ones are slightly off to the right, and the tremolando ones are off to the left, which is, I guess, not how an orchestra would be laid out, but who fucking cares? It just made sense in the context of this mix, I guess. yeah, really, just really straightforward. Less stuff in the verses, more stuff in the choruses. So please do subscribe to get the next video on how I got that gig to do this soundtrack. Subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and please do comment with your questions or any suggestions. If I'm yapping too much or not enough, please let me know.